Great. Well, hello there, Glenn. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation with me today.
Thanks for having me, Cindy. It's great to be here with you.
Well, you certainly have so many accomplishments. You have been in radio for over 40 years, including at the River 97.3 for decades. And you're also a musician yourself, including being the lead singer for Van Wirsing. So, as we, start our conversation today, I wanted to begin by honing into your radio work, which is so fascinating to me because you have come into the lives of the community. You're a part of our everyday lives and our morning routines, but you don't see the people that you're talking to. And so I'm wondering if you can share, how do you establish that sense of connection and intimacy?
That's a great question, Cindy. So I started in radio when I was 14, and one of the first program directors or mentors that I had uh, taught me a valuable lesson. And it said, you might be actually broadcasting to thousands of people at any given time, but we're sitting in a room by ourselves, which is very disconnected. So I was always taught to pretend like you're talking to one person, always. Just
Mm,
picture that, have a mental person in your mind. Even go so far as to do, and this is almost stuff from my theater background too, but do almost like a character study. Who do you think is the typical listener?
mhm.
And what are their interests? What are they, what's their family situation? So I kind of have a mental picture in my head of the person that I'm talking to when I open the mic. And I've always carried that with me. So I'm even though I'm in a room and I'm talking to the wall, I'm really talking to one person. And it also helped me early in the career because I would get really nervous. So they were like, "Hey, don't even think about those thousands of people that are listening right now. You're talking to one person." Because radio is such an intimate connection. Most people
Mhm.
listen to the radio in the car, at home, at work, in headphones or whatever. So it is a very one-on-one situation. It's a very intimate connection. And I've always loved that about this medium. But it's
Yeah,
different
it's
now. Sorry. But with the advent of social media,
mhm.
it's almost taken that wall down. So I can now actually see a lot of the people that are listening. Not at the
Mhm.
moment. They can see me. They're not like, I wonder what that guy looks like, which is what used to be. Oh, you never look. I thought you were taller, or I thought you had a beard.
Mhm.
I don't get that stuff anymore because of the advent of social media.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Firstly, let's go back to what you mentioned in terms of the strategy of talking to one person. And then I'd like to eventually come back to what you said in terms of social media and how that wall has been broken down. But in terms of that one person that you're honing in on, it feels like it's almost like a composite of what, several listeners might look like, who that person might be. Can you describe that person?
Yeah, sure. I generally have that person, I always have, because I've worked on more, like more adult aged radio stations. I have worked every format up until I came to the river. But I try to picture the person somewhere between 45 and 55 years old. That could swing either way
Hmm.
because we have teenagers that listen, we have retired seniors that listen, and everybody in between. But generally, somewhere between 45 and 55 years old. Unlike the typical rock station, we have a pretty good 60-40 split between men and women. So it's not just the
Hmm.
dudes that I'm talking to. It depends on the
Right.
content that I'm doing. If I'm doing something I think is a little more female friendly, it might be, a mom, a single mom maybe, or a
Hmm.
grandmother that's got infant grandchildren, a guy that's into the Phillies or, sports, maybe going to concerts is his number one thing. But I try to have that mental picture in my head depending on what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This might seem like a weird question, but do you ever envision a dynamic where the person you imagine what the response is?
That's an interesting question. No, I try to always just pretend, at least in my head, that they're digging what I'm saying or they're responding in a positive way. I never really think too much about that.
Hmm.
I just because I try to plan out what I'm going to talk about ahead of time. So I really try to hope that it's something that those people would be interested, that person would be interested in hearing.
Yeah, well, it's a very successful way to go about radio work. And I appreciate sharing kind of what that formula looks like to you. Um,
Sure.
in terms
Great
of radio
question.
work, you are have a really interesting resume in terms of, as I mentioned, being a musician, radio work, and you're also you've been a voiceover actor. And so what's fascinating about those three roles is it almost feels like your voice is an instrument to you. And how do you, when you think about your voice as, the vehicle for connecting with so many people in different formats, what can you tell me what that means to you in terms of honing into the voice as your craft?
Such a great question, Cindy. So I started out, like I said, in radio when I was 14 years old. So I had a very different sounding voice at 14,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
always tried to sound older than I actually was. So I had kind of when I first started as they would call it, a radio voice, like, hey, it's 12:30 a.m. KERV. Uh, and then over the years, as I progressed through high school and into my early 20s, I started to find my own voice, and realized it's not better than anybody else's voice. It's not, I was told, it doesn't matter what your voice sounds like. You don't always have to be the deep, hey,
Hmm.
we're in DC 101 or whatever. And
Hmm.
DC 101, you owe me for that plug. Anyway, it's about, do you sound natural? Do you sound conversational? Do you sound
Hmm.
like you're connecting with the person? And so that's what I've always tried to focus on with my voice, how to use it in, it is acting. I mean, even when I'm on the radio, I'm using those acting skills because
Hmm.
you have to, you can't just speak like I can't talk to you like I would talk to, like, say, my wife when we're in the kitchen. I'm like, hey honey, how you doing today? I love you. You're wonderful. You have to have a little bit
Hmm.
more presence, a little bit more energy, but you don't want that to sound fake. So I have learned to use that in both speaking and singing, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I guess
That's so
my
interesting. Oh, go
my
ahead.
voice is an interest. I guess my voice is actually an instrument, and I have never really thought of it that way, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Believe it or
Well,
not.
but you describe it in such a compelling way. I never really thought about it that you would absolutely be channeling some of those kind of theatrical qualities, but at the same time, you want to be natural, you want to be you. And that's really what I guess both of those pieces come together to connect you with audiences. But what does that balance look like? You're theatrical in some ways, you're projecting. It's not just an everyday conversation, but you're you. And so do you ever find that that line steps one way or the other?
Sometimes I notice, like when I'm out at a club or I'm at a bar, I'm hearing a band play, or I'm out just in the community in general, or a giant. One of the comments a lot of times I get back is, "Oh, you don't sound like you do on the radio." And part of that is because, well, I'm not speaking in a microphone, and my voice isn't coming through a speaker to you, which makes
Mm-hmm.
your voice sound a little different. But once I start talking to them a little bit more, they're like, "Oh yeah, I hear it now. I hear you. I hear you."
Yeah.
A lot of it is just the processing that's on the mics that we put. It sounds different coming through a speaker as opposed to me just one on one. Like my voice to you over this Zoom call over my AirPods is going to sound different than if we're at the Allen Theater talking to each other
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah, I
person.
think it's a unique position where when you meet people, let's say, out and about in the public, they already feel like they know you
Yeah.
and you might not have ever met them.
Yeah.
And so what is it like when you hear them say, you don't sound like you do on the radio?
I used to get, when I was really young, I used to be like internally offended by that. But now I
Hmm.
understand why. I know why. There's actually science behind it, and I get
Hmm.
it. But it's so funny when you mention that people do feel like they know me. I've always taken the attitude if somebody comes up to me or talks to me or recognizes me, and even though I know I don't know them personally, I know that I do know them. They know me,
Mm,
so I I do know them. And I want to get to know more
mhm.
about them, but I do have that. I do feel like I have that connection with them, even if I've never met
Yeah.
them in person before. I know that there is some kind of a connection that's there, and I want to make sure that that's honored and can continue and maybe go even farther, you know?
Yeah, that's very gracious of you. And it almost feels like when you're in public and somebody approaches you, you're giving them the gift of, yes, we do know each other. We have this connection through the radio.
For
But
sure.
it seems like then you always have to be kind of on and available for that. How does that feel?
I so I know what you mean. I do have a social tank. My daughter taught me this term because she'll go out
Hmm.
with friends or whatever, and then she'll come home and she'll need to just, my social tank is full. I need to decompress. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize that about myself. I didn't have a name to put on that. But I don't really look at it that like if I go out, I'm not on when I go to the store because I'm not necessarily on when I'm on the radio. Like you're gonna see me. I might be under the weather or I might, be ticked off if somebody just cut me off in traffic or something. I don't know. You might catch me in a real life moment or whatever. But
Right.
um, yeah, I don't mind that. I like kind of if you have to call it being on, I don't mind that.
Hmm.
I just
Yeah,
kind of I kind of just
I
try to
love
be
that.
myself wherever I am.
And I love that term, the social tank. Also, that your energy and your battery and how much it needs to be recharged, or if it's kind of at its full capacity. Um, let's go back to something you said that maybe you're on air, and let's say somebody just cut you off, something really egregious just happened. Now it's showtime. How much of that would you bring in to the show, and or would you bring it in at all?
So it depends. If it was worth talking about, I'd probably talk about it on the air. If
Hmm.
it was something that was interesting, if it's just, I'm ticked off because somebody cut me off. Here's Def Leppard. Nobody wants to hear that.
Right,
Nobody
right.
cares that I got cut off. So I try to not incorporate that, if I'm under the
Mm,
weather, unless it's relatable, unless it's like the season where everybody's got the flu or the cold, I'll be like, oh, I got it too. But generally, I try not to reference that stuff. But if I can incorporate it into the show and make it a relatable thing, then
mhm.
yeah, I'll talk about it. But if I'm literally like in a bad mood, I don't project that on the air. Because I try to, we try to be a highlight of somebody's day to take their
Mhm.
mind off of the negativity that's in the world right now. So
Right.
unless it's relatable, I try
Mhm.
to keep my feelings out of it. Nobody
Yeah, that
cares.
makes so much sense. And I like that you use the word relatable. It's almost like you're sifting through things that ultimately would benefit the listeners.
Sure, yeah. Anything we do or talk about, what's the benefit for them hearing that? Am I just making noise with my voice? Am I just talking to talk
Hmm.
just for the sake of talking? Or do I have something interesting to say? Now, most of the time I don't have something interesting to say, I would say, but I try to at least think that it is. I try not to
Hmm.
just talk. There's supposed to be talking here between this song. No, it better be something at least a little compelling, or it better be short and sweet and just a station identifier to remind people that they're listening. But I try not to waste people's time with a bunch of rambling nonsense
Yeah,
because
I
everybody's
love
time is
that.
precious. Yeah.
Time is precious, and I would imagine, especially on a radio, that might feel like a pressure cooker in terms of I need to extract only the most important things. We have the short period of time. Over your years in working with radio, do you just get a sense of how to be as efficient as possible with your words?
I think so. I've never been on a talk radio
Hmm.
format. I've always been on music stations. So, and mornings is probably the most runway you get to talk. People give you more latitude in mornings because they understand there's more conversation going on in the morning.
Hmm.
But I try to limit myself if I'm on a really long break to like 2 to 2.5 minutes, three at the very most, and it better be really good because I know that people have very short attention spans, like myself. And if you're not grabbing me, I'm punching out. I'm going to the next thing. I want to see what, oh, this is boring, or I want to hear a
Hmm.
song. But if it's compelling, I'll listen to it, or
Yeah.
interesting, or funny, or whatever. But it's funny if I'm out in a situation like emceeing a show or something like that, or somebody has something they want me to say, I'll be like, don't worry, I'll be short and sweet. Believe me, I won't go more than like 2 minutes. I
Hmm.
think I have an internal clock that I can tell when I'm hitting that spot, but it
Yeah,
does
that's
give me
such a
word economy.
skill. That
Yeah.
really is a huge skill, very impressive. Over your years, did you ever look back and say, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Hmm.
Absolutely. But nothing that really sticks out. But I used to really beat myself up when I would do a break and it would be what I would consider not that great. I'd be like, oh, I could have done, go back and listen to, we call them air checks when we record just our shows, the parts of us talking, and I go back and just overanalyze those. I don't do that anymore because I just figure it is what it is. What I said is what I said. And, as long as I don't, also, I'd be really honest with you. I don't talk about a lot of controversial things. I
Hmm.
try very hard to not talk anything about politics because it doesn't matter what side you're on. I'm trying to appeal to everyone. And so, do I have my
Hmm.
opinions? You bet I do. Do I think that everybody should be allowed to express their opinions? 100%. I feel like people come to the river or music related stations as an escape from that. You're
Hmm.
not coming to the river to hear what my opinion is on the state of the world. And I'm
Hmm.
not, I'm going to give it to you. If we're out and about and you want to ask me about it, I might, depending on, how I feel like it might go. But I really think people listen to the radio for escape to music
Hmm.
stations.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good approach. Especially and I'm just imagine you honing in and talking to that one listener. And I like that it sounds like you're imagining that person is coming to you to escape as opposed
Mhm.
to diving into controversial topics.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's coming to me. Nobody wants to know what I think about the state. And plus,
Hmm.
it's so divided right now. You're
Hmm.
going to tick off half of the audience,
Yes, yes,
so
agree
it's not what we're
wholeheartedly.
here for. Now
Yeah,
down the hall, they're fine with ticking off the other half of the audience because they'll get all of the other half, and and
right.
that's their format. That's the way they're
Hmm.
built for that. We're not built for that, and that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back. You mentioned that you were 14 years old when you started, and that feels so young. And I'm just wondering if you could go back in time to being 14-year-old, stepping into the world of of radio. Can you kind of paint the picture of what that looked like?
Mm. Yeah, I grew up between South Carolina and Texas. My parents, I moved back and forth a bit, but I was a theater kid. My mom got me into theater when I was like 9 years old, into
Oh.
being in plays.
Hmm.
And then I won a prize. I listened to the radio. Everybody in my generation, we all listened to the radio coming up.
Hmm.
And this was a little tiny town in Texas called Kerrville, Texas. Population of about 25,000 maybe. And there was an AM FM combo there. And the AM station played what would now be considered yacht rock, but it was brand new back then in 1980, 81. Ambrosia, the Eagles, Kenny Loggins and
Hmm.
Messina, all that stuff. So I listened to that station and I loved the morning show. And they gave away the trivia question, and I won a Frisbee. And I went into
Oh.
the station to pick up the prize, and they gave me a tour of the station. And I was like, wow, this is so cool seeing, like, the microphone, and boy, the board looks so different now than it did back then. But I was
Hmm.
just enamored and just loved the way the people on the radio talked to you. And I could tell there was acting involved in that too, especially the ones
Hmm.
that had morning shows with characters and things like that. So the program director knew that I was in theater, and I talked to him about any kind of possibility of part-time work. And they had a Saturday night, 6 to midnight shift open on the AM station.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked to my dad, and he drove me to the station every Saturday. And I did my 6 hour shift till midnight my freshman year
Wow.
of high school. And we played albums and 45s, some carts, some songs were on the tapes on cartridges, but it was mostly vinyl when I first started in 81. And I was definitely the nerdy theater kid, but man, when I got on the radio, I had people, I'd have people come to the station and hang out and,
Mm-hmm.
maybe party a little bit. I don't remember if we did that. But anyway, they thought that was really cool. It kind of upped my cred at school a little bit. So I had some of my friends would come, not to get in trouble or get me fired from the station, but
Mm-hmm.
as long as we were cool, my boss didn't care, because it was
Mm-hmm.
Saturday and I kind of helped keep the vibe light. But it was a lot of fun. I never thought that that would be my career. I wanted to be an actor, is really what I wanted to do. But my senior year, I got offered a full-time job, and I never ended up going to college. I stayed in radio and was going to go to college, and it just kind of never happened. So here I
Mm-hmm.
am, 40 something years later, 45 years later, still
Wow.
doing radio. It's been good
That's
to me.
so amazing. I love the way you described walking through the station for the first time and feeling like you knew the people. It's almost like on the other end of the radio, you were describing feeling that sense of connection that you now establish. And just being able to jump into 6 hours at age 14, that feels almost impossible. What did that feel like? 6 hours for a 14-year-old? How did you fill that time?
Well, they have stuff for you to talk about. They have what we call in the business liners. There's liner cards, and there's artist information. Of course, it was way before the internet, so you're reading
Mm-hmm.
Rolling Stone magazine and Cream magazine, and the newspaper, and finding stuff to talk about. But like I said, on the music stations, you're not talking that much, so it's not like a
Mm-hmm.
6 hour talk show. Um, so yeah, it's a format, and so you just kind of follow the format, and you find the things that they want you to talk about, this event coming up, or this pancake supper, or whatever, dinner, breakfast, or whatever, uh, and you just and you take calls, and it was just I was just in there playing. I was getting to play all these artists that I loved, Foreigner and the Eagles, and all kinds of stuff, and it just I guess I just fell right into it. It didn't seem like a big deal to me. I remember the newspaper did a story about it when I was 14, but I didn't think it was anything. I just thought it was my next acting gig.
Yeah, and as you're describing, almost like playing around, and it was this really uh, engaging environment. And then you mentioned earlier that it was social. You had people come and join you and hang out. It sounds like a really fun time. I wonder if you can kind of imagine that year. You said early 80s, I think.
Hmm.
And then contrast it now. We're in 2026. You mentioned earlier things have changed with the advent of social media. Can you maybe do a comparison contrast of what radio looked like then compared to now?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because even 45 years later, even though I don't play records anymore, in fact, everything's on a hard drive now, and even though we have social media, the same thing applies from 1981 to now. I'm sitting in a room by myself,
Hmm.
present company excluded. I'm in here with a microphone. This is my instrument. This is my tool. Well, I guess you said this is my instrument. This is my tool.
Hmm.
And I have a console, and I have a bunch of music at my hands. And now what are we going to do? That is exactly the same. How can I make a connection with the people on the other end of this microphone? That's exactly the same. I don't care how they change the technology. I don't care what other forms come about, satellite or streaming, or streaming services or CDs. Everything's tried to come and kill radio.
Hmm.
And the one thing that exists is the human connection, because that's what people listen to
Hmm.
the radio for. Back when I was a kid, I had tons of records, and I would go and I put my headphones on when I wanted to escape, and I would just put my headphones on and listen to my albums or 45s, which is the modern day playlist on Spotify
Hmm.
or Apple Music. But when I wanted to connect with the world or wanted to see what was going on or the cool stuff that was happening, I would turn on the radio because I'd be by myself, I'd be alone, I'd be like, huh, I wonder what's going on here. And I'd turn on my favorite DJs, and listen to what they were playing and what they wanted me to hear and what they were talking about. And I felt that instant human connection. And that's the one thing that has not changed and why radio is still such a viable uh, medium. And I've always said, and I didn't make this up. Bob Pittman, our CEO at iHeart, has said that radio was the original social media. And
Mm-hmm.
people would call in, connect, talk about things, talk about crazy stuff, funny stuff, stupid stuff,
Hmm.
But radio was that initial social media, that social connection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it that way. And I also like how you kind of describe from the early 80s to now, the same goal is steadfast in terms of connection. You have the mic in front of you and you want to connect with people just like you were connecting with your favorite radio hosts, which I think is a really beautiful goal. And I think that really, points to the success you've had and just having that source of connection as being kind of at the helm of what's guiding you. I wonder if we could maybe pivot a little bit, and if that has remained the goal, what about you yourself in radio from the beginning, in the early 80s to now? Have you changed? Can you maybe do a little pit stop over the years about how you've changed?
Well, yeah, in my personal life or just radio career.
Either.
Well, I mean, I've gone through all the various stages of life, so I've been married. Um, I'm in my second marriage right now, which is 22 years this year, 23 years in September.
Congrats.
Thank you. So we're learning what not to do, I think, by now. So we're this one's working good. And we
Mhm.
have I have a stepdaughter, my first marriage, and I have a daughter with this with Nancy. Emily is our daughter, and she's about to be a senior in college. So I just
Mm,
think as you go through the different phases of life, I think sometimes some of that can come out on the radio, whether you talk about
mhm,
them specifically. I just think it just your attitude, the things you find to talk about, the audience that you relate to changes over the years.
mhm,
I'm also a person in long-term recovery. I've been clean and sober for 25 years. And so my first part of my career was, impacted by that, I'm sure. And this part of my career has been impacted by, sobriety. So I'm sure that plays some kind of a factor into it. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting how the industry has changed, how I've changed, hopefully grown and matured.
mhm,
I hate to use that word because I'm still 16. I'm still a very
mhm,
immature kid. But yeah, I think radio has always been that constant in my life, no matter what's
mhm,
gone on, all the way from 14 till now. The one thing I can rely on is that I can come in here and talk, and I know somebody's on the other end listening, and hopefully I
mhm.
can make their day a little brighter or relate some of
Yeah.
my life experience to make them feel like they're not alone in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you so much for your willingness to be vulnerable and share some of the things you've experienced, including your family life and your sobriety. I really appreciate you talking about those personal journeys. And you mentioned that you think that there has maybe been a part of you, your personal life that has emerged on radio.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm never afraid to talk about recovery or anything like that on the air. Most people know I don't drink and do drugs anymore. I don't have a problem with other people doing them
Mhm,
as long as it's not a problem. Rock on. They worked for me
mhm.
for a while, but then they stopped working. But yeah, I think you use the good and the bad stuff in your life to relate to an audience because that's what everybody goes through, good times and bad
Yeah.
times. And I think they just want you to be real and human when, I know that's what I'm looking for when I'm hearing that person on the other side of the speakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, that goes to that connection that you describe, being real, being yourself, and sharing, things that you've been through, which I'm sure have really touched the lives of your listeners. And when you think about the lives that you've touched by sharing parts of your journey, how does that make you feel in terms of, not just the everyday stuff, but some of the maybe the challenges that you've navigated and gone through and connecting those pieces with listeners? How does that, when you reflect on it, make you feel?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's not something I put a lot of thought into other than just it's just my natural way of being. But I mean, I could just say if it impacts anybody in a positive way, then I feel like this has not all been for nothing. If
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting in here talking to a wall, I'm not
Hmm.
just playing Def Leppard and the Eagles for the 5 millionth time, which I love both of those bands, and I'll play them 5 million more if I'm given the opportunity. But I've
Hmm.
always hoped that radio is about so much more than just that. And so
Hmm.
the more real and the more human connection I can have, and if I can affect somebody in any kind of a positive way and lift them up and make them have a little bit of a better day or get their mind off of what they're going through, then this has been a phenomenal ride, and I hope I get to
Yeah.
keep doing it.
That's really touching. And I really appreciate that energy that you bring and the you that you bring into this role. Excuse me. And the fact that you really find it meaningful to touch the lives of your listeners.
Thanks. Yeah, I certainly hope so. Thanks.
Yeah. Can we switch gears and talk a little bit about you as a musician as well?
Sure. I can tell you this was not on my bingo card, but I mean, I've always played the guitar. I've played out in various, usually acoustic. I've done solos, duos. I've been in some bands, but nothing like Van Wersing. I can tell you that.
And, having had seen you at the Allen Theater, I mean, what a dynamic performance. You really step into the role of David Lee Roth in terms of just that engagement and that high energy. And of course, the quality musicianship. It was really quite amazing to see.
Well, it's some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. This band is about a year old, and it was put together
Hmm.
um, for our drummer Fedge Herb, who lives up the street from
Hmm.
the Allen Theater. He has a
Yeah.
party every year, and he always does something different every year. And so this time he put together a Van Halen tribute band with Eric Wirsing, which is the whole reason we're doing this because Eric is such an incredible band, and they have Solar Federation. So I've known them for years
Yes.
and years as a friend and a fan, and we've just always bugged Eric. Hey man, you play so many other things, and your Van Halen is so spot on. You really need to be in a situation where you can showcase that. So
Hmm.
Fedge put this band together for just his party with Mike Washkovich, Mike Bitts, and himself, and me, which I couldn't believe it. I wasn't sure if I was into it, but I'm like, guys, I'll come try this out at rehearsal. If it doesn't work out, it's totally fine. You guys should still do it, even if you get another singer, because it's just too good. Well, we got through, I think, Unchained, and everybody looked at each other and was like, nobody was more surprised than me. I'm like, okay, I guess I can do this. And so we did the Fedge of July, and then next thing you know, Brett Michaels gets wind of us, of Eric playing the guitar, and he has us up at Spyglass, and Eric plays Eruption with the Brett Michaels band on stage, and then we
Hmm.
join him for Ain't Talking About Love, and I swear everything just kind of took off from there. Here we are a year later, and we are at the point where we're starting to try to figure out where do we want to go with this, because we
Hmm.
we feel like we kind of have lightning in a bottle
Hmm.
only because the guys are so good at playing this music. It's like I'm singing karaoke. That's how good they are. It's like I'm singing to the albums and they've taken the vocal track out. Um, we have I'm probably talking, I've gone over my 3 minutes that I told you that I have a governor in my head.
No, please. This is
But this
really
is just,
interesting.
it's so exciting. We have a strict no wigs and no spandex policy in our band
Mm.
because we're not trying to be Van
Mm,
Halen. We have nothing against the tribute bands that do that. It's a lot of fun. It's a whole cool vibe. There's some really good ones
mm,
out there. There are. Our mindset is a little different. We want to recreate the sounds of the albums and still yet bring the energy of a Van Halen show to audiences to keep this music alive. And we're concentrating at this point on the David Lee Roth era, the first six albums. But that could change. We could get up into the Sammy years at some point. That's really a whole different band. So we'd have to really make some adjustments there, but we would be able to do it. But just right now, we're into the David Lee Roth era. Real quick, that's the first concert I ever saw in my life. Was Van Halen,
wow.
1980 in San Antonio. It was the Women and Children First tour, the World in 1980 World Invasion, and seeing them on stage, they were my Beatles for me in
Mm,
1980. As a 13-year-old kid, it changed my life. So I've been a huge Van Halen fan my whole life. So to get to sing these songs that I used to sing in my bedroom and in the car and all that stuff and actually get to do it and try to, not be David Lee Roth, but just bring some of that energy. You can't just stand on stage
mm,
and sing these songs, especially when they're playing them so good. It's like, you see me smiling the whole time. I see why Dave was smiling the whole time. It wasn't just the drugs and the booze. It's because the music is so high energy and good. They were the masters. And so to look at Eric and Mike and Fedge and Bits playing this stuff, I just get the biggest kick out of it. It's so much
mhm.
fun.
Yeah, I love just how much admiration you have for the band and for the process and the energy. It seems like it brings you so much joy. And how amazing is it to hear you mentioned it wasn't originally on your bingo card. It feels like it just kind of came together. But when it came together, now all of a sudden you're playing with Brett Michaels and you're moving in this direction. It feels like it came together quickly and it's moving forward at a very quick pace too.
Yeah, we're all trying to kind of wrap our brains around because they still have Solar Federation. That's still
Yes.
the number one priority. But as we move into 2027, this year we play in about five shows. We're looking at doing more next year, but we're not, we don't want to be playing at this point, eight times a month. We
Hmm.
all have jobs and other stuff. Do we want to do more? We'd love to do some bigger stuff if it's possible. So we're talking about that now, actually, just to
Hmm.
see where we want to go because we're sure having
Yeah.
fun.
Right. Now, at the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned and we talked about how you're talking to thousands of people, but you don't see them necessarily, except for in your mind's eye. But now on stage, you have the audience right before you. What is like? Can you talk about what that shift is like and how that's similar and different?
I love it. I love it. And it's such a different experience, but it's really it takes me back to my theater days,
Hmm.
which I've also gotten back into theater again last year.
Oh,
I did like
wow.
yeah, I did like five plays last year, and I'm in one right now at Theater Harrisburg. But there's
Hmm.
nothing better than that live instant feedback connection. And I've been in many different situations music wise over the years, but never anything like this, where you get on stage and you just know these guys are going to nail every no,
Yeah.
it's the confidence that gives you. So I know when I'm up there, the audience is digging this, and my job is to not screw it up. But I love seeing the smiles on people's faces. I love when you're on stage doing a play when you can see that instant feedback if you make somebody, stir their emotions, whether it's make them laugh or you see somebody
Hmm.
crying in the audience. It's just there's nothing like that instant feedback. So you're right. It's totally different than this, but I love them both. I like both.
Hmm. Yeah, I like how you describe that audience feedback and you're almost like you're performing and you're doing your work, but you're keying into what their reaction is. Can you give a scenario of either good or bad, you keyed into something that you saw in the audience and that informed whether you went left or right and the twists and turns of how you performed?
when we were opening up for Bret Michaels at Hollywood Casino last month, well, in July of this summer, which was one of the greatest experiences of all of our lives. It
Hmm.
was such a great experience. Biggest stage we've all ever been on. Such a great situation out there. This is actually on video. If you go to our Van Wersing YouTube channel, it was during the song. We did a 30-minute set and we were doing Everybody Wants Some. And
Hmm.
this is really, I'm going on all these tangents, but Bret Michaels is so cool. They have a thing called a thrust on their stage, which is the part of the stage that the singer or the guitar player or whatever walks out into the audience. You know, it's a
Hmm.
little part of the stage that juts out. Most artists will not let the opening act get on that. They're like,
Hmm.
no, Brett doesn't care. He's so cool. He's like,
Hmm.
go out there and do your thing. So I really could connect with the audience by going out there. But there was this one girl that was leaning on the railing on the front row, and she was like this for like the first four songs we were doing, just kind of like, and I'd make eye
Hmm.
contact with her, and and I try to make eye contact with everybody, but she just would not budge. And I actually said, I didn't plan to do it, but right in the middle of a couple of lines, I was like, "You're gonna smile before the night's over." And as soon as I said that and backed up, she got the biggest smile on her face, and she didn't stop for the rest of our set. So that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. That I could actually take some, because she was probably like, "Yeah, get through the opening act and let's get to Brett," because she was there to
Hmm.
see Brett. I also understand that, but everybody around her was having a blast, and and maybe there was something else going on. You never know what people are dealing with in their lives. So I wasn't picking on her, and I was totally going to leave her alone after that. But she instantly got a 100-watt smile on her face, and it didn't stop for the rest of the night. So that
I
was,
love
I'll
that.
never forget that.
That's amazing. I'm sure, and she will never forget that either.
I hope not. I hope she's not like that jerk called me out on stage. No, I don't think she'll forget it either. But yeah, like I said, her reaction is not on the video, but me saying that to her is on the video. If you go check
Hmm.
out, and we just posted it. Everybody wants some. But yeah, that was a
Yeah.
fun moment.
That is it, like that connection again, to use your word, as well as it's interesting because when you describe radio work and you talk about honing into that one listener as a on stage, you're really performing for everybody. But I love that you utilize that moment to connect with her and really kind of make her shine from that moment on.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I won't forget that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's pause for a minute and just say, my gosh, opening for Brett Michael. I mean, that feels so amazing. Can you kind of walk us through the emotions and the thoughts as you learned that this was going to be happening and the actual experience?
Yeah, it's just it's kind of like it's surreal because Brett's from here. I've known Brett for years and interviewed him on the air and interviewed him for shows.
Mm.
But when he found out that Eric could really play the guitar and that we could actually do this,
Hmm.
he got behind us and was such a and that just we couldn't believe it. Like, and it also gave us that extra boost of confidence that wow, maybe we don't suck. So
Hmm.
for him to not only invite us up on stage to play with him at Spyglass last September, but for him to remember that moment, and then when he came back to
Hmm.
Grantville, ask us to do an opening set, that just blew my mind, all of our minds. And he is such a gracious guy. Like I said, he doesn't care if you use the whole stage. He was going to have us back to play with him on stage in Grantville, but because of weather, it got cut off
Mm.
early. So
Hmm.
we were literally on the stage. Eric had his guitar. We were ready to go out and play Ain't Talking About Love with the Bret Michaels band, and he and I trading vocals, and they cut the show short. And it was just like, oh no. But we had to get out of there. And it wasn't until the next day that it was like, oh man, we didn't get to do that part of it. But to do the opening set in front of a couple of thousand people, it was mind blowing. It was
Yeah.
surreal. And the staff and the crew out at Hollywood Casino are such pros. We got a great sound check, and they made us sound so good out there that it was just like you, you're singing to the records. It's like and you're connecting this music that means so much to so many people. You know, we're trying to keep this music not alive, but just to go be able to hear it performed live really well. We kind of liken it to, I know this is another subject, but we liken the tribute. People are like, do your own stuff, you know, or nobody can. Symphony orchestras in every town have been, you know, performing the music of the masters for centuries. And that's kind of the
Mhm.
way we look at what we're starting to be a part of. This tribute band thing has been going on for years, but now it's starting to take off even more because more and more of these bands and artists aren't doing it anymore. And so we're just trying to keep that live experience there and to replicate this music the best of our ability so that people really get a sense of what it feels like to hear this music performed live.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I like how you view doing the work almost like symphonies are recreating the work that was that was written and composed earlier on, but it lives on through the performers. And that's very true with tribute bands. Sometimes, as is the case with Van Halen, not all of sadly, Eddie Van Halen is no longer with us. And so, in the case when even maybe not all the band members, might not be here to share that experience, we have folks like you who are carrying the torch.
Yeah, and you want to talk about somebody that pours his heart and soul into Eddie Van Halen. Eric Wirsing has, Eddie was a hero of Eric's from the time he was a kid. And some of the first guitar that he learned was he taught himself all the Eddie stuff. So for him to get to do this now, he is meticulous he wants to get every note the way he played it on the records. And when you come to see a Van Wersing show, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get like
Yes.
99%. And does he make mistakes? Of course he does. Everybody does. But man, you're going to get as close to hearing the record because he cares that much and wants to perform it that well. He puts hours of practice into it. He really
Yeah,
does on
it's
his own
so
time.
it's so clear that that's the case. I mean, each of you really brings your just the professionalism, the skill, the craft, the artistry. I mean, it really is on display, and it's just such a feat to see. Um, as we kind of come to a close, let's imagine this. What would be your thoughts about at the River 97.3? You now are playing your own music. Can you envision a time when you're playing Van Wersing on the station?
Uh, I think I played one version of us doing Panama just to promote the Bret Michaels show, but
Mm,
I don't see that happening just because I think we played one on the local show one time because we have a local music show Sunday nights at 8 with the Central Pennsylvania Music Hall of Fame. And yeah, I just I look at that as kind of a separate thing almost. I mean, yes,
mm,
the paths cross and they can intersect, but um I don't know. We've got the Van Halen music to play on the river. We'll play the
mhm.
original stuff on the river unless it's some special occasion. But to get to go out and replicate that music, I hope we get to keep doing it for a while. I think that all of us would like to keep doing it for a while, as long as we can, as
Yeah.
long as people want to come hear it. We'll put the work in and the fun in, and we'll bring the fun energy. We have a couple of shows. We have Shy Bear coming up on August 28th. And then we only have XL Live after that on October 30th. Those are the last two dates we have this year. Now we have some stuff coming up in 2027, but
Mhm.
yeah, we haven't announced those yet. And we'll hopefully get a few more things cooking here soon.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear about how those shows go. Really, it's just such a spectacular performance that you put on. And it makes sense in terms of really leaning into the live performances, as opposed to kind of meshing together your work on the radio and Van Wersing, because it really kind of allows you to key into it feels like your love of the theater is really front and center when you're doing the live performances.
That is my first love, theater. And to get back on stage doing some plays in the first for the first time in literally 40 years last year has been surreal. And the theater community in Central PA has been very welcoming. And I love it. So I love the collaboration. That's one thing that radio is lacking now with,
Hmm.
shrinking population of staff, which is so sad to see. I won't get into that. But I miss the collaboration that was radio.
Hmm.
Even though it's one on one, there'd be 15 of us here and we would, shoot the crap and tell jokes and do stupid stuff and come up with fun stuff to do in promotions. I miss that collaboration. So that's what I love about being in a band. That's what I love about being in theater is working with other artists to come together to create something that's really cool or really beautiful. So
Yeah.
I love it all. But
Yeah,
theater's
that's
my first
amazing.
love.
What do you think the young 14-year-old, if you could go back and see the young 14-year-old you here, that you would be at this point in your life now with all of these accolades and accomplishments, how do you think that young boy would respond?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I'd be like, "Hey, man, don't worry about so much. Just hang in there and keep doing what you're doing and be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself. It's all gonna be all right. Everything's gonna work out
Mm,
beyond what you could have ever imagined." Yeah.
hmm. That's beautiful. Wow. Well, I feel like we've really been able to kind of journey through your career and just even imagine your starting point and where you are now and all that is, unfolding and all of those future feats and acts that you are stepping into is just really amazing. And I feel very honored to have been able to hear your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy, for having me on. And uh, I love what you guys are doing at the Allen Theater. It's so great how much you guys are doing with the music and having all of the live music in the Allen. And it's such a great theater. We had a blast playing there. We'd love to do it again sometime. And the coffee shop and the memorabilia and stuff that you said, it's such a cool vibe there in
Thank
Annville. It really
you.
is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And thanks for doing the podcast. Thanks for having me on.